You're curious, aren't you? You flush. You don't even think about it. Water swirls, everything disappears, and life moves on. No instructions, no manual, no one taught your ancestors how to do this. So how did humans figure out where to go thousands of years before anyone built a toilet? The answer starts long before humans were even fully human. Look at almost any wild primate, and you'll notice something strange. They don't relieve themselves where they sleep. Chimpanzees and bonobos consistently move away from their nests before doing their business, even though nobody taught them to. Researchers who study disgust, including biologist Valerie Curtis, argue this isn't politeness. It's ancient pest control. Waste carries parasites and pathogens. An animal that fouls its own sleeping area gets sick more often, and sick animals don't survive long enough to pass on their habits. So evolution did something clever. It built revulsion directly into the brain. Curtis's research suggests disgust evolved as one of the oldest survival tools humans have. Older than fear of predators, older than language, older than fire. You don't need a lesson to feel disgusted by waste. You're born already flinching from it. So imagine early human groups, walking, hunting, moving camp every few days. There was no plumbing to figure out because there was barely a fixed place to need it. You walk a short distance from the group, you do what needs doing, you walk back. The forest floor absorbs it, insects break it down, and the group moves on before it becomes a problem. For nomadic humans, the entire earth was the bathroom, and constant movement was the sanitation system. But then, something changed everything. Humans stopped moving. Around 12,000 years ago, agriculture took hold, and for the first time, large groups of people started staying in one place, permanently. And that single decision created a problem evolution never prepared anyone for. What happens when hundreds of people live in the same spot for years, and the ground can no longer just absorb the problem and move on? This is where sanitation stops being instinct and starts becoming invention. At Skara Brae, a Neolithic settlement in Scotland dating back around 5,000 years, archaeologists found something remarkable. Stone-built drains running beneath and between the houses, believed to have carried waste away from where people live. It's one of the earliest known examples of humans engineering a solution, instead of simply walking away from the problem. But the real leap forward happened in the Indus Valley Civilization, around 2600 BCE, in cities like Mohenjo-Daro. Archaeologists have uncovered an extensive network of covered drains running beneath the streets, with many individual homes connected directly to that system. Some houses even had dedicated rooms believed to function as private toilets, flushing waste into channels that carried it away from the city entirely. What makes this even more remarkable is the scale of coordination it required. This wasn't one clever household solving its own problem quietly. It was an entire city agreeing, without any central government forcing the issue that we know of, to build and maintain a shared system for thousands of people at once. Archaeologists still consider it one of the most advanced urban sanitation networks of the ancient world, and it predates similar systems in most other civilizations by well over 1,000 years. This was thousands of years before germ theory existed. Nobody there could explain what a pathogen was, and yet they built a system that solved the exact problem pathogens create. How do you invent the right solution? Long before you understand the actual problem. Sometimes disgust doesn't need a scientific explanation to be useful. It just needs to be obeyed. Centuries later, the Palace of Knossos on the island of Crete featured something that still stuns historians today. A stone structure connected to channels that could be flushed using water poured in from above, built around 1700 BCE. Long before the word toilet existed in any language, someone had already built one. Ancient Egypt took a different approach entirely. Archaeologists have found wooden and stone toilet seats in wealthier Egyptian households, positioned over a bowl filled with sand, which was simply swept out and replaced afterward. It wasn't plumbing, it was portable, low-tech, and remarkably practical, and it worked for thousands of years without a single pipe involved. Even death didn't interrupt the standard. Some tombs built for the afterlife included toilet fixtures, suggesting that even in the next world, ancient Egyptians expected the basics to be covered. Then came Rome. The Romans took the idea of sanitation and turned it into infrastructure at an entirely new scale. The Cloaca Maxima, an enormous sewer system built to drain the city, was constructed as early as the 6th century BCE, and portions of it are still functioning today, over 2,000 years later. Public latrines lined the streets of Roman cities, often built as long communal benches with holes cut side by side, offering essentially zero privacy by modern standards. And instead of paper, Romans commonly used a tool called a tersorium, a sponge attached to a stick, rinsed and shared between users. It's the kind of detail that makes modern toilet paper feel like an unbelievable luxury. So if Rome had sewers, and the Indus Valley had drains thousands of years earlier, why does so much of history afterward look like a step backward? After the fall of Rome, much of that engineering knowledge simply wasn't maintained. Medieval European towns largely regressed to chamber pots, cesspits, and a now infamous job title, the gong farmer, someone paid to empty pits of human waste, often at night due to the smell. Gong farming was dangerous, poorly regarded work, and yet essential enough that some towns paid these workers more than ordinary laborers. Waste was frequently thrown directly into the street, sometimes with a shouted warning, sometimes without one, and city sanitation, in many places, became worse than it had been under Roman rule centuries earlier. Sometimes progress doesn't move in a straight line. Sometimes it forgets what it already knew. It took a genuine crisis to force the modern world to relearn Rome's lesson. In 1854, physician John Snow investigated a devastating cholera outbreak in London and traced it back to a single contaminated water pump on Broad Street. His research helped prove something society had ignored for centuries. Human waste mixed into drinking water doesn't just smell bad, it kills people, directly and predictably. That discovery led engineer Joseph Bazalgette to design London's modern sewer system, a project directly credited with ending the cholera epidemics that had plagued the city for decades. The instinct your ancient ancestors felt without understanding why, disgust, distance, disposal, was finally being backed by an actual explanation. And honestly, statistically speaking, some of you are watching this exact video while sitting on a toilet right now. No judgment. Subscribe anyway, so the next time you flush and think nothing of it, remember what's actually underneath that simple action. An instinct older than language, refined by nomadic humans walking a few steps from camp, engineered into stone drains by Neolithic villagers, expanded into entire cities by the Indus Valley Civilization, industrialized by Rome, forgotten for centuries, and finally explained by a physician tracing a single pump on a single street. You didn't just inherit a toilet. You inherited thousands of years of humans slowly figuring out how not to poison themselves, one disgusted flinch at a time.